Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you might happen to be. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks from Nerd Caliber, that is the we who aren't currently on vacation or moving, or it's mid to late August, folks. That sort of stuff happens and will be happening. So I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, a first-person shooter on Facebook, as a cosplay photographer, Burley underscore adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places, mostly as a tech journalist, a couple of other things. Tonight, we are talking about the Disney Plus Star Wars series, The Bad Batch, technically Star Wars : The Bad Batch, because everything in Star Wars is Star Wars : these days. And we'll be talking, as we always do, about where it came from, what we or I liked about it, didn't like about it, and then going into tone of the overall show, messages if there are any to take out of this, themes, etc. Let's welcome people into the chat right out of the gate here. Galactic Cookie, let's see, you said E, so I'll say I. See if we can get I and then an O, and anyway. Robert, welcome to the show. Over there on the YouTubes, let's see, anybody chatting? Nobody chatting on the other social medias at the moment, so we'll jump right into it. First off, full disclosure, I'm not a Star Wars lore nerd, so an awful lot of this stuff is based on what I've seen from Star Wars, but particularly the Filoni universe, which I think I'll call it that, Clone Wars, Rebels, etc., now this Bad Batch, I'm not really super deep on. So when I make mistakes, not if, when I make mistakes, feel free to jump into the chat and correct me on these. So Star Wars: The Bad Batch is a Disney Plus series that is focused on a team of, let's call them non-standard clone troopers, who were created by the Kaminoans, the geneticists on Kamino, that, as we saw in the second movie in the prequel trilogy. In this case, the team is mostly made up of what we call non-standard, because they were chosen to be enhanced with mutations. To see whether or not that would ultimately produce, more effective troopers. And it turns out that aided in their sort of independent thinking, and they were a lot harder to control. All of this was introduced in the series, the animated series, Star Wars: Clone Wars. It should be said that most of them are this. Apparently, the team member Echo, the one with lots of biotech, implants, cybernetic implants, was a traditional clone trooper, and was rescued by the members of the Clone Force 99, they're called, technically, as opposed to the Bad Batch. And they were rescued by the Bad Batch, and he was saved, enhanced in the ways that he could be with these cybernetic implants, and became a member of the team. So they're not all these mutations. The story is set right at the beginning of the rise of the Empire. It is the point where the Empire starts to discover that they may actually be able to get by with just sort of recruiting normal beings to be stormtroopers, not clone troopers, thereby, one, saving them an awful lot of money, and not worrying about any of the other effects that might happen with the clones, because the clones age 4 times the rate of the... Oh, they're all humans. I mean, so even though they're technically not human, because it takes place in a galaxy far, far away and a long time ago, they're all humans. And so they age 4 times the rate of humans. So, given being able to recruit stormtroopers would solve that problem. That's one of the things that happens in this story. By the way, full fat spoiler chat. We're spoiling this, so we're going to be talking about plot elements and so on. The story basically follows the Bad Batch after they are no longer really being used as part of any sort of Imperial clone trooper force. That takes place in the first couple of episodes, and they essentially become a mercenary group. And they have adventures with a seemingly young clone that is a female variant of Jango Fett, which they find out is a completely unmodified, other than the fact that it's a she's a female as opposed to Jango Fett, who is male, clone of Fett. So any of the enhancements that were supposedly made to the clone troopers are generally tougher and stronger than most people, which is part of one of the reasons why they age faster. In fact, Omega, who's the name of this young woman, I guess technically, is older than all of the members of the Bad Batch, even though Omega appears to be 12-ish. I don't know. It's hard to say. And the story is basically about what happens to these, this Clone Force 99, to the Bad Batch, as they get involved with Omega and wind up no longer being part of the Empire, so they're being hunted by the Imperials. The story involves one of their members. They all have non-standard, not number designations, so they all have Hunter and Wrecker. Crosshair, the sniper, basically turns on them and sides with the Empire as they escape from, the fact that they had done something wrong in the mission in the first couple of episodes. And that sets up, the big conflict that wraps the whole story up, of them being hunted down by one of their previous members, and working with the Empire, and the Empire sending a whole bunch of other people, after them. So, also, full disclosure, I did not watch the entire run. I watched the first 4 episodes. Then basically dropped it, intending to get back onto it, and didn't until the last couple of days, so I watched the last 4 episodes. So I've only seen half of the entire run. The middle story, the middle 8 episodes, I have not seen. I don't think, based on all of the stuff I've read on sort of roundups of those episodes, and what I saw at the end of the last 4 episodes of the series, that anything that happened in the middle really had any impact whatsoever on the conclusion of this season. Nothing. It's just as what happened in the first 4 episodes basically wraps up in the end, and the rest of the stuff in the middle is almost episodic week-to-week adventures. You get little drips and drabs. Like, you don't find out absolutely for sure that Omega is an unmodified clone of Jango Fett, so essentially contains the exact same genetic material as Jango Fett, so could be used to create more clones, clone troopers, by the Kaminoans if they were ordered to, which is one of the potential conflict points why they need to keep Omega away from the Empire, even though ultimately it turns out the Empire decides that they really just don't want to do anything with clone troopers anymore, because it's cheaper to go recruit kids and indoctrinate them. So it's 16 episodes, just wrapped up this past week, and I'm going to jump into now my start with the things that I liked about this series. So one of the things that I really, really like about this series is the quality of the production values, the art, for the most part, almost completely, and in my things I don't like, I'll get into this one thing, the animation, it's wonderful. It is a step above Clone Wars. Although because it is essentially a follow-up series on characters based in Clone Wars, it is very, very similar in artistic style, but the animation is even better. There are scenes with particle lighting as stuff is floating through the air, and highlights on characters and on the environment they're in, that's moving and complex and so on, and probably done with computer graphics. Well, the whole thing is CG anyway. But it doesn't, it's wonderful. It's really pretty isn't the right word. It's really compelling to look at in almost every case. So I really like that. I like the voice cast for the most part. They do an excellent job with what they're given to work with. And that kind of gives you an indication of something else I'm going to talk about in the stuff I'm not crazy about. Some of them to call out. Rhea Perlman as Sid is just, it is a delight. It is so good to hear Rhea Perlman's voice on a regular basis again. Yes, please, and thank you. Others, what is his name? All right, I don't have it here. I guess I'm going to go to this other thing where I'm. Noshir Dalal, the Vice Admiral Rampart, sort of the overarching bad guy, other than Crosshair, who is possibly not a bad. Well, he's kind of a bad. Anyway, Vice Admiral Rampart is really played very well by this Noshir Dalal, giving the character a depth of villainy that is not cliche, that is not stereotypical. It's not Kylo Ren, raging, angry teenage boy who's clearly no longer a teenage boy. It's not almost mustache twirling Moff Tarkin, although Peter Cushing, the original Moff Tarkin, he is so good. He could twirl all the mustaches and you'd still believe him. And the person who does Tarkin in this, Stephen Stanton, does a really good job of channeling not just the sound of Peter Cushing's voice, but the sort of restrained mustache twirling type villainy that Tarkin has. But this Noshir Dalal as Rampart is even subtler, I think, in his villainy, and that I liked. I thought that was really good. And of course, some of the people that are the Easter egg guest stars, are obviously solid. Ming-Na Wen as Fennec Shand, it's going to be fantastic. Ian McDermott, of course, as the Emperor, always fantastic. Freddie Prinze Jr. As Caleb Dume. The award has to go to D. Bradley Baker, who is every voice of Clone Force 99. They are all individual. They all have their own, general voices, even though the accents are very similar because, they're all raised by basically the same people. Although that's just it. Even though Jango Fett has a New Zealand accent, once the clones are decanted, as it were, they're raised by the Kaminoans. So why don't they talk like Kaminoans? I don't think accent is genetic. But hey. And Michelle Ang, who plays Omega, is really solid. Again, not given a lot of lines, but not given a lot of depth to the character. There's not, you could basically sum up Omega's character as, oh, we should go help these people. And then, things go south and eventually work out. Which is kind of most episodes in this show. and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Mandalorian is certainly like that as well. Mandalorian generally is at 16 episodes that to go through to get to some sort of final resolution of a season. So that's an awful lot of adventure of the week Johnny Quest type episodes to make it through, to get to the big resolution. Even that, the season-ending semi-resolution of this current season storyline. D. Bradley Baker, all the kudos for doing all those voices. The music, it's bombastic Star Wars music, so it's what you'd expect. There's nothing particularly special there, but it's cool. The direction. So in anime, the director would be generally considered the one responsible mostly for the compositing and not necessarily the choice of shots. Those are often, in a lot of cases they're storyboarded out by the director, but they're given, the animators are given a fair amount of leeway as to exactly how to do that. I'm guessing in here the director is more like a traditional TV or movie director. And some of the shot composition, ideas are really good. So I'll give the director, credit for that. That's pretty impressive. So since I'm solo, this is probably going to be a pretty short show. Although I'm going to go into what is now going to be my longer segment, and that is things I don't like. So individually, one of the things I don't like, I talked about animation. As a general rule, I really like the animation in this, except the actual physical character movement animation. And particularly when action is involved. And it took me a while to figure out this is something I don't like about... This is why I was never a big fan of Clone Wars either, and it's because all of the characters, when they run, they kind of hop. And even when they fight, they kind of hop around. Their actions are too fast and too jerky. And I don't mean in bad animation. It's smooth. It's a smooth portrayal of people jumping around like rabbits. Which means it to my mind, it eliminates all the weight, the sense of tension in any fight. When you've got somebody who looks like Daffy Duck bouncing around in a Looney Tunes cartoon, and I'm sorry, every time I see them do that, that's all I can think of is like, I can't remember the episode, but Daffy Duck pretending he knows martial arts. It takes that weight of the fact that you really need to worry about the effect of this stuff, of blaster fire hitting you, of knives coming at you, of whatever else is happening, completely away from it. And it, in a show that otherwise has very good, serious moments. All right, I'm going to jump back to things I like. Again, spoiler. I really like the resolution of Crosshair's storyline in this season, in which he doesn't exactly get a redemption arc. He reveals that they all, of course, have the inhibitor chips in them. That we found out that's how Order 66 was carried out. He reveals that, and they all think, since his inhibitor chip was enhanced in like the first or second episode by Tarkin, to make him even more compliant and more on the side of the Empire, he reveals that he had taken out his inhibitor chip somewhere in the course of the storyline, but long before he did a number of things to keep coming after them. And and so that's a big surprise that he is in fact, you could say brainwashed, but he is on the side of the Empire without being forced to be because of this inhibitor chip. And it ends with him in a better place with his former compatriots, but still not going with them, still saying that he is on the side of the Empire. And kudos to the writers for making a character who is essentially a villain stay on the side of villainy. Even though at the end his acts are not nearly, and in fact he does a very heroic thing by rescuing Omega and AZ, the Omega's medical assistant droid friend. So kudos to them. That's another thing I really liked about it, that they were brave enough to have that complex an idea for a character. And I say idea for a character because now we're jumping back into things that I don't particularly care about. So to wrap up the animation thing, I just think that to me, very silly looking, bouncy movement of all the characters, it just takes away any of the weight of the live action stuff. With even the ones that are really well trained. When Ray Park, for all the problems with Ray Park, was fighting as Darth Maul. One, because Ray Park is a trained martial artist, you got the sense that that was a dangerous individual. You didn't want to be anywhere near those whirling blades. In Clone Wars and in Bad Batch, because they're animated in exactly the same way, you almost get the impression that somebody can literally just bounce out of the way of that thing at any time, and they bounce around about. Anyway, that bothers me. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like the animation, and I don't like the. I'm not a fan of the Filoni universe as it's presented in this animation. I love The Mandalorian because it's live action. Harry Brady, welcome to the show. Spoiling the Bad Batch. This is the spoiler show, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, thanks for stopping in. But you should probably take off. Otherwise, hang around, throw some questions at me, correct me when I make mistakes, because I'm not a deep Star Wars lore guy, and we'll continue on. So the other thing this isn't a thing I don't like. Well, I guess I don't like it. It's the writing of the stories, and particularly the characters, is the absolute dictionary definition of okay. I mean, it's almost never bad. There's occasional dumb things, but that's just dumb. It's also almost never really good. If they try really hard, it comes up to okay, it's pretty good. And sometimes it's that just wasn't really that great. But for the most part, it's like it is so middle of the curve. It just like okay, that was a show. And that's it. You've got the potential to explore so much character depth with clones who were genetically modified to be different than everybody else that they are supposedly associated with. And an actual regular, or a reg as they call them, clone trooper who was basically almost destroyed and then cybernetically enhanced in Echo. You've got so much potential trauma to deal with, or even portraying that they just don't deal with the trauma, in some way. These characters could be so much deeper. Even Omega, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the New Zealand way of saying Omega, something like that. Even Omega basically spent twice of the lifetimes of the current Bad Batch, and they all look like they're grizzled guys in their 40s. So close to 80 years in one lab. Now, working with Nala Se, the one who actually developed the mutations for the Bad Batch, that's got to do something to you, man. That's got to, and we get none of that. The character's supposedly twice as old as or older. Let's not say twice, older than the members of the Bad Batch. So at least in her 50s, and has spent therefore 50 years inside a lab. And still is written and functions as the plucky preteen or tween, character. There's zero chance. You want to see an example of a change in that? Watch either 2 seasons, but certainly season 1 of the Umbrella Academy, and number 5. When number 5 comes back, after essentially spending an entire lifetime first on, so 2 lifetimes really, first on the destroyed Earth, post-apocalypse Earth, with no companion except a store mannequin, and then working for the Time Authority that is, basically trying to stop the Umbrella Academy. You've got in this case, mid to late teen appearing number 5, and it is written as, and the actor does an excellent job of portraying this as essentially a, world-weary, pretty grumpy older man. That's what Omega really should be. Writing that character as a tween, as a plucky tween, is just wrong. There's zero chance that character would be that kind of person. Or if you were going to do that, have it break occasionally, and show that Omega, isn't the plucky tween that she tries to be, and that when the reality slips, is really a very, tired 50-something who has no experience with life outside of a lab whatsoever. But, to say what could have been done, that it wasn't done, but nothing like that was done either. And so therefore, it's just, this is, that's okay. That was a good story. Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay, yep. They did the things they needed to do. The characters literally are nothing but drivers of doing the things they need to do. And that's not good character writing. Crosshair, frankly, is the best character. Crosshair has the most complexity. One other thing I didn't particularly care about, and I have not found anybody else who made this inference, so this may be me completely misreading the character. But Hunter is named Hunter, has neck-length, wavy-ish, very dark hair, and a black tribal tattoo on the side of the face, and a red headband. To me, this is just an absolute, really bad Native American stereotype. Now, I've seen it said, people assume that the character design was based on Rambo, from the first movie. And I can see that to some extent, except for the face tattoos and the fact that it's, his character designation is Hunter. And maybe that's the case. And again, like I did a search to find out if there's a controversy about Hunter, and Hunter's character design, and there isn't, or nothing that I could find on Google. So maybe this is just me, but if it is, it was something I felt, and it bothered me throughout most of the show. It's like, can't you give him just something different? Give him red hair or something, just so he doesn't look so stereotypically native. Um, but anyway, um, that's really mostly what I didn't like about it. As I mentioned earlier, I wasn't crazy about the idea that a lot of it is, Johnny Quest Adventure of the Week kind of stuff. And as a semi fan or a casual fan of Star Wars, I kind of liked the Easter eggs when they were thrown in there. All right, I'll go back to this. I appreciate the fact that when they did put in references both to characters from the Filoni universe, like Captain Rex, Fennec Shand, and so on, that they weren't. They may have been the dominant feature of the particular episode that they were primarily in, but that was it. They didn't become hey, let's keep bringing back more, previous characters. You've got Bib Fortuna. I was like, cool. All right, we got Bib Fortuna, and of course the Emperor, and so on. And Tarkin. No, well, Tarkin's a pretty important character in this. So I think that they did a pretty good job of riding that wave of, too much fan service, and enough to satisfy the fans, but also make it make sense in the stories. You kind of got the impression, once or twice that, like in the Fennec Shand episode, that, okay, this is just to throw Fennec Shand in there because, a series coming up. But they were pretty good about that. And I know, because I've read some of this stuff, that I missed probably hundreds of larger Star Wars universe Easter eggs in the run of the entire series or season, and good on them. And that's a Filoni thing anyway. He throws in Easter eggs all the time, and references and uses characters from other aspects of the Star Wars universe all the time. So that's pretty much it for my dislikes. And I'm gonna have to say that I don't know that I'm going to be one of the ones involved. I kind of have to because I run this show. If we do a season 2, I really don't like the animation of the characters. It's so off-puttingly silly, humorously silly when they fight or run or move. For the most part, that it just makes it contradicting what the stories are supposedly telling us. And it doesn't always have to be that way. In one of the episode War Mantle, so 14, there's a scene where they're running up when they discover the secret base inside the mountain. There's a scene where they're running down a slope, and that's all bouncy, the stuff that I hate. But then there's a scene where you can see the mountain in the background, and they come running into the frame. So they're running, and that animation is really smooth, much more normal looking. And it shocked me to see something like that. Like, if you can animate them moving like this, why would you animate them bouncing around like bunny rabbits? But again, that may be the design choice, and they like it, and it works. I'm probably the only one that has a problem with that, but I do, and badly enough that it's not something I'm going to seek out in the future unless it's a completely different animation style. And again, that's too bad because the production value, the artwork of the animation, and the compositing and everything else is just stellar. So, messages, themes, tones. I think overall it tries to give you a message that found family is as strong as blood family, or in this case, genetic family. Because Echo is certainly a strong part of the team, and Crosshair makes an absolutely non influenced by technology choice to not be a member of the family. And of course, Omega, who is technically a member of the family because they're all clones of Jango Fett to some extent, is becomes a member of the family. And this is a pretty common theme throughout an awful lot of Star Wars stuff, particularly the later Star Wars stuff and the Filoni stuff, that found family, the family that you choose to be the people you associate with, is as important, if not more important, than genetic or blood family. And I think that's really about the only message you can take away from this whole thing. It continues the Star Wars message that power corrupts. That if you are, that it's almost inevitable that a too complex power structure will lead to evil. Basically, will lead to an imperial system. And that's really it. I don't think it's there's nothing else that's particularly deep enough about this to tell you anything. They could have made it a show that explores an awful lot of the PTSD of the clone troopers, particularly the ones that are no longer sort of kept simple, I guess is the better way to put it, in their emotions and their thinking. Again, particularly Echo, there should be an awful lot of PTSD stuff to explore there, but it doesn't even get touched. So that's it. It's pretty simple. It's a simple story that has the illusion of complexity because of the incredible depth of lore that it fits in, while it's creating new lore essentially all the time. And frankly, lore exploration or lore inclusion isn't character or story complexity. It's background complexity. And kudos to Filoni and the team and everybody for having an amazingly complex background into which to put these characters in this story. If only the characters and stories were remotely as complex as that. And which means that this is an absolute must watch for fans of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, of deep lore Star Wars fans in general, and for casual fans like me who appreciate the better aspects of complex entertainment. Animation was good, aside from the bouncy. So that's it, folks. That pretty much wraps it up. Our next show is Anime Octane on Monday, and gosh, I do not have our topic. So you'll have to pay attention to when the promo goes up on Sunday as to what it is. Then we have Nerd Week Live, of course, which is our Nerd News Roundup show coming up on Tuesday of next week. And I'm going to the spoiler team right now to say that, Witcher: The Nightmare of the Wolf, the animated Witcher Vesemir prequel story, that will be our full fat spoiler chat for next week. So we'll see you then. Folks, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me in the chat and hanging around for this short solo roundup. I wish for my Star Wars nerds, deep nerd fans, that I like this better. But like I said, it is just absolutely, it's plain Cheerios and plain milk. It's just, it's okay. And that's it. So, please, folks, stay safe out there. Cons are ramping back up, even though mask mandates in states where they don't have morons running them are starting to be put in place, as are vaccination proof and so on. Stay safe at these cons, people. If you're going to cons, wear a mask. Even if there isn't a mask mandate at the con, do the right thing, the smart thing, the safe thing. Wear a mask, please. Um, you know, Kids are getting this now. It is growing faster in the youth population, young adults and kids, than the previous version did at all. So keep the kids safe, folks, please. As the joke says, do it for the kids. Well, in this case, do it for the kids. Even if you don't want to do it for yourself, wear a mask for the kids. All right. Anyway, that said, stay safe, folks, out there, and we will see you in an upcoming show. Thanks, and